Okay, Joe, last segment, you talked about something that could be arguable, but give me something that's undeniable. You can't, say it's arguable or...
Well, if you don't mind, let me start on this.
Yeah.
Because I need to do a segue for him.
Right.
Because this is Joe's story.
Mm-hmm.
So after we got the arrangement down, which we talked about before, and we tracked the piano part, Joe went to bed around 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I stayed up another couple of hours or so editing and listening to the piano part and working, and I went to bed about 3 o'clock-ish, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear all this kind of ruckus, footsteps and shadows going back and forth repeatedly, and him singing, muffled, and I'm like, what is he doing at 5 o'clock in the morning, And so I went, well, whatever, I went back to sleep. And so I get up about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I went immediately into the studio because I wanted to know what was going on. And I see this broken, disheveled, crying person. When I came in, he got all excited. He goes, Greg, I don't know where to start. I'm like, yeah, what happened? Obviously something happened, And he goes, I don't know where to start. And he tells me this story of what happened to him that night. And I was pretty shocked. But Joe, Tell us what happened, buddy.
So, I went to bed. I know we have a long day ahead of work, planning on getting to a good 5-6 hours of sleep and getting up and going. And I could not go to sleep. I just had anxiousness. I'm not an anxious person. That's not my MO. Looking back on it, I understand. It was just, oppression happening. I had a very restless sleep. Fall asleep a little bit, wake up, fall asleep a little bit, wake up, that kind of thing. Somewhere around 5 o'clock, 5:30, I don't know, somewhere in that range. And I woke up, and as I'm looking around the room, at the end of the bed was this creature standing on the end of the bed. And probably the best analogy that I could give somebody, the little gray aliens, the big black eyes, like that, although its body was more boxy and its head had ears that went just up into points on each side. So not like the gray alien, but that's probably the closest reference I could give. And it was just on the end of the bed looking at me. That's pretty unnerving.
Yeah.
I don't fear demons, and I've never seen a demon before in my life. And even afterwards, I was questioning myself, was I dreaming? And I'm like, well, no, because I never went back to sleep. And that was a big key point for me. And so I laid there for a while trying to calm myself down, and I could never go back to sleep. It was just too disturbing. And so I got up and I went and made some coffee, threw on the bathrobe, and Greg's got some comfy bathrobes. And he keeps the house like, a refrigerator.
No, my wife keeps it like a refrigerator, but my gear doesn't mind that.
Yeah. But so I threw on the big, comfy bathrobe, got some coffee, and I'm just like, let me see what Greg, worked on the night before. I pulled up the chair, sat down, put the headphones on and hit play. Started listening, everything was sounding great. I was really happy with it. And it gets to the bridge from nowhere that we talked about in the last video. Why that moment, looking back in retrospect, became even more of a God moment was because of what took place in this moment. After that whole bizarre demon thing, when I get to this bridge, all of a sudden, like a fire hose, a video, words, everything just started.
Melody?
Well, yeah, melody, all of it started flooding out. It was truly overwhelming. That's such a weak word, honestly. Overwhelming is weak. All this stuff was flooding out. The feeling, the heart of the song. And so I'm trying to write. I'm writing as fast as I can. I would have to stop the song and I started crying. And I got emotional about it because of what God was saying in the song. I was a blubbering mess by the time I finished. And just how much God gave me and the heart of the message, and I get emotional. The heart of the Father. Ultimately, this song became about the prodigal son. You have in the bridge this conversation taking place between Satan and Jesus. And Satan is accusing the son at his lowest moment. And you watch the video, he's eating out of trash and everything else. All the money's gone. It's just horrible, drugs that were implied and all this kind of stuff. He's hit rock bottom. And there's Satan accusing. He's not making up stuff. It says daily that he stands before the throne of God accusing the saints. He's not making stuff up. We sin. We blow it. It's all true stuff. And the back and forth with Jesus and Satan at that point is, do you see? Yeah, look at your boy over here sinning. And Jesus is like, yeah, I see him. What about it? And Satan then says he won't believe, as if to say he won't believe that his relationship could ever be restored with the Father. And that's where he screws up, because he's trying to play God in that moment and say what's going to happen in the future for that man. And that's where he messes up. And Jesus turns to him and rebukes him. We don't have this in the video because I don't have a $500,000 budget for CGI. So we had to do the best we could with conveying it. If you guys want to volunteer for CGI work to get this done for me, let me know. But you see this radiant Christ, the Christ of Revelation, with the flaming eyes and the skin like burnished bronze, the white hair, and he turns and looks at Satan's and he says, you believe, and shake and tremble, right? You don't get to say what's going to happen with him because he's mine. And he banishes them, and that's when the lightning strikes. That's when Satan is cast out. And it gets really intimate and really soft. And God was giving me all of this, the video, the words, everything. How do you deal with that? It's like, whoa, man, it was in 4D,
I'd like to make a comment on that real quick to help the viewers understand the impact of this. A couple of things. One is somebody, a non-believer, for instance, can say, yeah, well, that's just a person's imagination. He was dreaming. He was hallucinating, whatever they want to say, right? So I was obviously had questions. Anytime something like this happens, everybody's going to have questions because we want to verify, we want to know that it's not somebody's imagination, for instance. And of course, the first thing I'm asking Joe is, were you dreaming, and, these kinds of questions. And he explained to me and said, no, I know I wasn't dreaming because I never got up. I never woke up.
Yeah. I never went back to sleep. I was
right.
Just awake.
And I went, oh, okay. I said, well, what happened? What did you? We just stared at each other, and was there any words conveyed between? No. Any sounds? No. Well, what happened? He said, well, it was about a minute and a half or so. I don't know exactly the time, but it just kind of faded away. And I'm like, well, it's kind of weird, But the point I want to make here is with a couple of other pieces of information I got with Joe. Not that I didn't believe Joe and I thought it was incredulous or anything, but as an inquiring mind, I want to understand. I wasn't there. So he gave me some information that was plausible. I'm like, okay. But the thing is I've known Joe for 35 years. I know him intimately. He's not schizophrenic. He doesn't have psychological issues that I've ever seen. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't,
Right.
but I have no evidence of that in 35 years. He's never given me one iota of behavioral information that would have me question this.
Right.
In the least. He's a man of God. He's my pastor. He's my spiritual mentor. He baptized me. I mean, I trust this man implicitly. With my very life, I would trust this man. So if he tells me he saw a demon on the end of my guest room bed, there is no question from this man right here. I do not question him. And I'm sure you've known him for a while too.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
I've known him.
Has
for
he ever
5
given you
years.
any reason to doubt him?
Never.
You
Never.
know,
He's always true to everything he does.
Well, I appreciate y'all saying that.
and he's just a man of God, and he
right.
he's shown me that so many times. The other thing about this that's important is that it took me weeks or into months for me to fully understand the story and the characters and the vision he had and the things he had in his head that God had given him. All this stuff.
Yeah, that was part of the weird experience.
What I'm trying to get everybody to understand is that this happened to Joe in a night.
Yeah,
where God flooded a human brain.
You have to keep it in context of all the stuff we said just before. I had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had nothing.
We had
no lyrics, no melodies, no
nothing.
How am I going to phrase this? What's it about? What's the lyrical content going to be? What's the philosophical angle? Nothing. And he gives me a vision in his head that God gave him of the actual video.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I wanted to point out is like y'all been working together for so long. How is this interaction different than times before? And that just shows you that it's from a higher power.
Imagine it took me multiple sessions and weeks or months over time for me to get all the information to him to transfer that information to me. Joe got all that crammed into him in 2 or 3 hours.
Well, instantaneously, honestly. It was...
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, you still had to process it.
Yeah, I had to process it. Yeah.
Firehose.
But all of that stuff was just crammed into him. So I'm trying to get everybody to understand what Joe must have gone through. There's no way we can fully understand. But I knew something happened that was big and somewhat traumatic because I saw this exhausted, exhilarated man that couldn't wait to funnel it out to me. I got to tell another human being about this. And it was amazing for me. And that is when this whole thing started. I'm like, wow, it's like buckle up.
Right.